Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. I'm not wasting any time with an introduction on this one. I have the team behind the new Scream movie with me right now. Matt, Tyler, Chad, I've said it to you off camera, but again, congratulations. And from the bottom of my Scream-loving heart, thank you.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
So before we get into my mile-long list of spoiler questions, I just kind of want to catch our viewers up with you guys. I know we did this a little bit for Ready or Not, but I got a couple more early questions for you. And Matt and Tyler, I wanted to start with you because back then you told me that you used to work at New Line, and it made me curious. Is there anything you picked up at your time over there that you found really coming in handy in your later films, especially given New Line's success and how prolific they are in the horror genre?
Yeah, aside from like picking up, I think maybe the most consequential thing, which is each other. I mean,
it's the friends we made along the way.
The friends we made along the way. Like that job introduced us, and we both worked at New Line because of the work that we loved, the work that was coming out of New Line. But I mean, our connection, our working together wouldn't exist if we didn't have those jobs.
Yeah. And I still remember my interview at New Line, and, you know, like in any job, the first question they ask you is like, so why do you want to work here? And I'll never forget it. I'm still friends with the guy who interviewed me, and he was like, why do you want to work here? And my answer was, because you guys make my favorite movies. And he said, name some. And the three that I named were Pump Up the Volume, Friday, and Nightmare on Elm Street. Those were like my holy trinity. And I was like, you guys did it. I got to be here. And then I just delivered mail for 10 years.
All right. So now for the three of you as a team here, I know you guys have been working together for, I guess, over a decade now, but do you remember the point in your collaboration where the thought went from, you know, we're not just capable of making shorts and internet videos, but this feels like the right team and right assortment of people to be able to jump to the next level and deliver, you know, studio level features?
Yeah, I don't know exactly at what point that happened, but I do know along the way that we loved the creative debate that we always had amongst the three of us. And it was always challenging each other to find better, more creative solutions to any problems that came up. And obviously when we were going forward with, like, just say Ready or Not, and we had to do everything we had to do for Ready or Not in a very short amount of time, we kind of really went back to the way that we started. Like, all right, we have these locations. We have to go really fast. We have to run and gun. We have to make sure, all the actors are safe, of course, but we also have to get every bit going forward with it. And I think along the way, we picked up a lot of those things. And then even on screen, when we have like some of the best department heads in the world working around us, there were still moments when we had to go back and one of the Easter eggs that we'll talk about is like the Michael Myers shot in Scream is actually Matt with a knife, with Tyler holding a camera and me holding my iPhone and lighting him up from behind underneath. And like we couldn't get the clip.
Real studio level stuff.
We had to recreate it. Yeah. So you just had to recreate it from scratch, and there's just three idiots in a dark room, like holding a camera, and like, oh, this is the way it gets made, and this is what we do.
I think that's a really interesting example, though, because I would say the one thing that's been the same for us from the start is just there's this level of kind of naive ambition where it's like, oh, we have a cool idea, let's just figure out a way to do it, and that oftentimes for us meant like going to crazy practical locations and like putting ourselves kind of through like physical hell to capture the thing. We were also acting in and shooting all of our old stuff. And I think for us, that feeling of like when like inspiration and ambition kind of intersect, and the level of excitement that there is around that. And it's like, oh shit, we have to just figure out a way to do this. Like we will hate ourselves if we don't achieve this thing. And then the fun is just figuring out a way to do that with the resources you have. Sometimes you have, more, sometimes you have less. And I think that's really been the same for us from day one.
I feel like that level of blind ambition is absolutely necessary if you're going to get to work in this industry. Otherwise, it's just not an option for you.
Yeah, yes. I would say so. Yeah.
You've probably been asked this before, but I was surprised I didn't ask you this during our last conversation. Why did you call your collective Radio Silence?
Who's answering this?
I don't know, but that was a great silence after that question.
We planned it.
I felt like it was on purpose.
We try to organize these so we don't all talk at once, and sometimes the opposite happens. You know what it is? It's when we were just getting going. Again, kind of to your previous questions, like we always had ambitions of we were like we want to like aim for the highest thing and then see how far we get and have fun along the way and hope for the best. And so, once we started doing some smaller stuff, we'd have meetings, and that was really exciting because felt like we were getting our foot in the door, and we were like, this is so cool. And then for weeks after, it'd be like, hey, what happened with that meeting? Radio silence. And we would say it all the time to each other. Radio silence. Hey, we sent that script to so-and-so. Radio silence. And then when we got VHS into we didn't get VHS into Sundance. When VHS got into Sundance, and we were lucky enough to be riding those coattails, Brad Miska, Bloody Disgusting, was like, well, so who's the director and who's coming to Sundance? And again, we were like, well, we all want to go. Let's just make up a name. And it was like 3 minutes of, what should we call it? Radio silence. Great, cool. Yeah, so we're called Radio Silence. And that was it.
I love that story so much. It kind of makes me appreciate it more. And also because just in general, I really do love talking about things like, bumps in the road, how you overcame them, and how without those bumps in the road, you wouldn't be where you are today. So with that in mind, I want to bring up Devil's Due because I know that wasn't received, super great with like a loving embrace or anything like that. So what would you say were some of the biggest lessons you learned in terms of film reception and moving on from it, having gone through that with Devil's Due and coming out on the other side, I think, stronger than ever?
Yeah, I feel like our reflection on that as that project gets kind of further and further in the rear view, I don't think we'd change anything about it. I feel like we had to go through that experience, and it feels like we went through that experience, which at times was like a dream come true and like more of an opportunity than I think we ever thought we would have. And then other times it was really challenging. And I think what we can say is that the people that we went through that experience with are like still some of our dearest, closest friends. And so much of what was challenging about that project for us was really, I think, we were at, whether we understood it or not, and I think that we ultimately did in our hearts, and ultimately were presented with an opportunity that had so much momentum that we kind of couldn't slow it down and make all of the changes that we wanted to make, was we were sort of at the end of a subgenre in a lot of ways, right? Found footage was, and I think it's back in short format. Yeah. But honestly, I feel like Chronicle did that really big, Hollywood version of it, and we were always going to be a little bit in the shadow of that, and I think that for us was really just one of those challenges that we took it really serious because we love that format. We think it's creatively it's a really fun thing to dig into. Like the rules of it are really interesting, and we think create a lot of really fun kind of creative debate. But that was it. It was just a challenge. It's a challenge to sustain a found footage movie for that amount of time. But the process was incredible, and I don't think we'd redo it. And I think there's a lot of us in that movie. We've rewatched it recently, and it's funny, and we love Zach and Allison. Like their performances are so great, and so yeah, I think we reflect on it very, very, very fondly. But I also feel like it's one of those that had we made it maybe outside of that system, we would have also maybe done some things a little bit differently. There wouldn't have been as much pressure for it to like perform at the same level. And I don't know, it's a really interesting moment in that specific format, found footage.
I'd also just add to that. I think one of the things that we've taken away from that is because, we got this, big break. I mean, we were going to make a studio movie, and that was like the most exciting thing in the world. I remember literally having a conversation where we were like, we're getting the opportunity to make a studio movie. Just take everything out of it. Just to have had that experience as a movie fan is just incredible. And then to have it not be embraced with open arms, as you so kindly put it, I think it toughened us in a lot of ways. And it made, because, our next movie after that was Southbound, and it was like this nice back to basics thing. And, we got put, director's jail is very real, no matter what anybody says. We weren't making another studio movie, and we had to go prove ourselves again. And I think it helps us not take like, this weekend has been incredible. Scream opening and being the #1 movie in the world is absolutely a dream come true and beyond anything we expected. But it also helps us, like, you know, you got to take the good with the bad. And I think it just makes us really respect that, and but also not take it too seriously. Like, no, yeah, cool, but that's just as fleeting as the other stuff, you know?
And you have to show up and make other stuff. You have to keep working.
That's the most,
you have to keep working. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the most important thing. And obviously, like, we came up, like, just making videos and giving them away for free on YouTube and being like, all right, cool, we'll do that. And our very first video, like, we get the review, like, Chad, Matt, and Rob is dumb, dumb, and dumb. And we could have just, like, packed it up and said, all right, we're done. But no, we just made another one, and then we made another one. And you're always going to have those types of negative responses coming at you, but the way you pick yourself up after those is what really matters, and really just get back to creating, right? Because if creating and making things is in your DNA, then that's kind of all you want to do, and you just take the bumps along the way, and you kind of just get back up and get right back at it.
That's why I ask those questions all the time. You never know who else out there needs to hear that from you guys in order to be able to get over the bumps themselves. And I don't know, maybe become the next you guys in a couple years.
And you never know in the moment what the outcome will be in the future. We found out on Ready or Not that the reason Tripp and Jamie hired us to direct that movie is they love Devil's Due. And they called the studio and asked, like, how were we to work with? And everyone that we worked with, these people that I told you we have really close relationships with to this day, were like, they're incredible. You should absolutely work with them. And we never thought in a million years that Devil's Due would be responsible for us getting to be involved in one of the greatest projects I think we'll probably ever work on, Ready or Not. And so you just never know in the moment what the value of something is going to be. Yeah, and end up making Scream, exactly. So. Yeah. It's all on the continuum. I think the goal is to not ever, like you were saying, Chad, to not ever let one thing stop you from continuing on, because you never know what the ultimate outcome of those experiences will be.
What was the first reaction when Jamie and the team came to you guys and said, we want you involved in Scream? Because on the one hand, like, I'd be jumping for joy. My mind would be blown. I'd be so excited. But I mean, there's a significant amount of pressure. And if you don't make do on fan expectations, I mean, to be frank about it, it could be right back to director's jail. So at that point, was there anything at all on the table that could have kept you from directing this new Scream movie?
Yeah, if the script sucked, but it didn't. It was incredible. But we went. I remember we were on. You know, we basically spend all of our waking time
majority of the day
the phone together. Like, even when there'll be like 10-minute pauses where we just don't talk, and instead of just hanging out and calling each other back.
Yeah.
And I remember being on a call together on the way over there and being like, what are we going to do if it sucks? Because we love these guys. We love everybody involved. It's one of our favorite franchises. I mean, there's so much on the line for us personally. And then there's also all the pressure of, and if we fuck this up, not only is this incredibly embarrassing, but we're not making another movie. Like, we're not making another studio movie or a movie at this level until we've built ourselves up again.
Southbound 2. And we're going to make a sequel to Southbound.
I wouldn't mind that.
We've tried.
Neither would we. Neither would we.
But so I remember that conversation of like, well, what are we going to do if it's not good? And then, I mean, luckily we didn't have to deal with it. But yeah, to answer your question, it was up until we read the script, it was a very real, like, concern of ours.
Yeah, and we managed our expectations. I remember thinking, like, we can't lower what we think the bar should be for this script, because we love Guy and Jamie and we love the franchise. Like, if anything, it has to hit at a level that it has to surprise us outside of our nervousness. It has to sort of consume that and get us excited, right? Like, which was its own sort of obstacle. I think our anxiety was really a huge obstacle. And by the end of reading the script, we were all just like,
they got this. Yeah. Shock. They're super talented.
Super talented.
They made our jobs real easy.
And then personal feelings outside of that go from, obviously this is a very manic business, right? So you do go from moments of just utter elation to utter terror as you're like taking on the franchise. But that's exactly why it's the right project for us to do next. Because we always say we want to make movies where people think it's either an 8 or a 9 or a 1 or a 2. We don't want the in-betweens. We don't want the
out of
middling average movies. like we want to take bold chances and really challenge ourselves that way. And it just really lined up with that. Plus the script is really great. So
Well, we got Devil's Due for that 1 and the 2, you know?
that was it. Yeah. So we need to have a
17% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Success.
just to average that out.
One more question before we get into spoilers. So after seeing your movie and falling in love with it, it is really hard for me not to be greedy and not to think about what you guys want and just to sit here and say, I want to lock you guys into making Scream movies for the rest of your lives. But after making this 2022 Scream, what are your personal priorities right now? Is there a desire to stick with the franchise and continue on with it? Or do you really want to continue to explore different original ideas or maybe another existing IP?
I mean, I think I can say that we love both ideas, and I think we want to pursue both things. We have a bunch of really fun original things that we're working on. You know, we know that there's been a conversation about Ready or Not. We certainly know that Guy and Jamie have amazing ideas about where Scream could go after this last one. We just want to be involved in all of it. I think once you've had an experience with people that really changes you, not only creatively, but like fills your heart up and fulfills you, you know, really in ways that I think we all never thought we would be fulfilled. You just want to replicate that as many times as possible. And so I know we'll have a ton of really amazing stuff with Guy and Jamie and William and Paul, the Project X, you know, team. And then, yeah, we've also got, I think we've got a lot of really fun original stuff coming up as well. So I think a bit of all of it. This was a unique challenge, and I think it scratched an itch we don't know we had. And I think it'll continue to itch. So hopefully
Big
there's
yes
more.
to all of it.
Yeah.
Bring it on. I'll take anything and everything. All right, this is it. I'm doing it. The one and only spoiler warning for Scream 2022. Please leave this video. If you have not seen the film, push pause, go see the movie, come back, and then push play and continue on right here. It's that easy. All right. Usually, I feel like I always build up to the big stuff in these interviews, but I don't want to run the risk of missing anything super important. So let's just start with Skeet's return. Billy Loomis is back. What were your initial thoughts on reading that in the script? Because, you know, of course, it's fun to see a major character, a franchise icon return, but you want to be sure that that return is absolutely necessary.
Yeah. I mean, in reading the script, our reaction that we hope audience members have when he pops up was our reaction reading the script. We were all just like, what the fuck? And we also knew that it was like really going to push the guardrails out on what you expect a Scream movie to do. We also knew that was 100% the reason to do it. And we also really loved what that character coming back did for our lead, right? For Sam, played by Melissa Barrera. There's so much at work in that Billy, you know, father-daughter relationship that's about legacy and about the things that you inherit and how you move on from them and what sort of pieces of those legacies you take with you, which is obviously also what the movie as a whole is about, and that baton pass from one generation to another. And we also, just for us, like Billy and Stu are just some like the most iconic slasher villains of all time. And to have him pop up in the movie, it feels like such a moment where the movie is aware of its lineage, it's aware of its past, it's also aware of itself as a movie in a fun way, right? It's sort of like, hey, we're going to have some fun. We're going to like Hollywood this thing up for a few moments. And then to also give that character a bit of an arc, right? We loved that the villain that started it all has a bit of a hero's return in a weird way, and is actually a part of Sam, of that character, fully realizing that she's a complete person. It's just that a part of herself is dark and is a thing that she would like to keep hidden, and ultimately has to come out for the movie to resolve. We just loved that turn for the character.
That was actually a question that I had. So I guess here's a really complicated two-parter. That's going to be a lot of my questions because I have a lot of them, so I'm trying to cram them all in. But is the return of Billy something you see as serving the franchise going forward and Sam's story more going forward? But then also, how do you view how he plays into this particular film and what she goes through? It's like, in the end, Are you saying that it was necessary and even good for her to tap into her inner Billy in order to kind of save the day?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that in order to make Sam a true hero of our movie and actually to carry the franchise forward a little bit, you do have to acknowledge her past and what she comes from, and like just the ability to overcome any new challenge. And if you can overcome the fact that your father was a serial killer and still do the right thing at the end, then you need to do that. It's like I think, and that's kind of a message that we always want to get out into the world. It's like, it doesn't matter what happened like before. It's like what you do now and how you move your own story forward. And I think that is the embodiment of what Sam is, coming from Billy Loomis and not having the most pristine and, like adolescence and teenage years, and now still trying to find herself and then fighting for her family and her relationship with her younger sister, Tara. It's all part of it because Billy was so selfish and so extreme to one end. I think the more she acknowledges that is a part of her and a piece of her that will always be there, but also choosing to go to embrace family, and then also, I mean, like let out the fury every now and then, like we do at the end. Like you need to have that, you need to have that type of tenacious fight in you. If you're going to survive any of these movies, right? You just need to be able to when it comes down to it, be the killer and make sure you're the survivor. And now you get to fight with your family as you move forward. And Billy will always be there. I think Billy's now, after what we've established in this first one, Billy is always a part of Sam, and Sam will always have a tether to Billy, and that's something she will always struggle with. Should there be a sixth?
I have very high hopes.
Yeah.
How about figuring out exactly how to show him? Is what we see in the final film the initial idea, or did you ever consider any other, visual techniques or styles in terms of incorporating Billy Loomis?
It's pretty similar to what we initially talked about, honestly. We were like, we always wanted it to be just in the mirror. We were really conscious of, and this part came from the script, we wanted it to be, make sure that she's never scared of him. She never reacts in like a fear way. She is always kind of like, ugh, fucking this guy again. But what you see, yeah, it was always supposed to be in the mirror. We talked about actually True Romance a lot. Sorry if I keep looking over here. I have two cats that I think they want me to feed them.
I very much understand
that. But I think it was we talked about True Romance a lot, and the way that they kind of have that Val Kilmer's Elvis is sort of there but not there, and you feel him but you don't have to see him all the time.
And he never feels like a ghost, which is interesting. He always is a hallucination and not a ghost.
Right. Yeah, we needed to make it really clear that it wasn't a ghost, because what we didn't want to tiptoe into, because again, we are not Scream 3 haters, but like the Maureen Prescott thing, we think that's a great scene. We hear the issues with it, but like it's what Tyler was saying about it. We needed to make sure that you weren't, oh, is this now a supernatural movie? Because that's not the Scream that I'm familiar with. And at the end of the day, we had Skeet for a day on set out in Wilmington, and we just shot a bunch of stuff with him in front of a green screen, and Melissa was there, and they did all the scenes again for her and for the first time for him. And I think it was one of those things that we spent so much of the previous year and a half talking about, worrying about, wondering about how it would turn out, and then when we did it, we were like, oh yeah, that's it. It's kind of as written, and it works. Let's not mess it up.
I don't think I've been on that wild of a roller coaster in terms of my initial reaction to seeing something and being like, whoa, like, I know about this. And then you prove your point at the end. I was very impressed by how that wound up settling in. You probably
it's a little jarring at first, right?
It's definitely a little jarring because, well, actually, here's the other part of this question. It's a little jarring because, like, in my mind, Billy is dead, and he's been dead for many films. Just in your minds, because I've had this conversation, personally, I think too often, Stu is dead, right? That TV fell on his head and it killed him.
Yes. I think we would say yes. This is a debate that we have had, us and the writer Guy Busick is, and by the way, we are also Stu defenders. We got to know Matthew Lillard over the course of this, and he is one of the greatest people alive. And so we would love for there to be more story to tell with Stu, as with Matthew Lillard. But
we need a Scream what if.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
I have a pitch for that. So I want a Scream 2022 prequel of when Amber's family moved into Stu's house and she came to learn what happened there and who he was. And then maybe you can incorporate Matt Skeet style in that movie.
Hey, I like that.
That's
that
very
idea.
interesting. It's like The Others with Matt Lillard. Yeah.
I'll take it.
And we should say, Perry, that
I'd watch.
Matt Lillard does cameo in the movie.
Right.
He does
He's-
the voice of.
Is he in the party?
He does the voice of Flamethrower
He's a party.
Ghostface, and he's at the party. He has a voice at the party.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I love all these Easter eggs. Here's the question you probably won't be able to answer right now, but do you have any ideas who Sam's mother is?
Do we know there's some fan theories floating around out there. We love that there is an off-screen story and that there's more to be told about the Carpenter family. She was written. She had a couple more scenes in the script, and it was really interesting when we were getting into when the rubber was meeting the road and we were really starting to prep the movie. It always felt like we were letting a little too much air into that family unit. That for a story that we really wanted to be about those two sisters, anytime that it became sort of larger than that and about a conflict with mom, and it just felt like we were sort of muddying the specificity that we wanted to achieve with these two sisters needing to reconnect over this rift caused by this really dark secret that is in one of their pasts. And so we know there's like a really cool Christina Carpenter story. There were little bits and pieces of it in one of the drafts, and I definitely hope it's something we can explore more of down the line.
As much as I want to see it, as someone who loves Scream and also loves her sister very much, it was very exciting seeing that kind of relationship done so well in my favorite franchise. So I'm glad the focus was there. This is more of a writing question, I guess, but how about picking the killers? Was it always Amber and Richie in every single draft of the script, or was there ever any, toying around and playing with other options?
I think after talking to Guy and Jamie, I think that it was always the two, Amber and Richie. Amber is named after Jamie's wife. Her full name is Amber, Freeman, and that was her maiden name. So he kind of just like really leaned into his personal references while writing about this killer. And then the same with Richie too. And obviously when we were getting out into the casting phase of everything, we didn't want to send out the entire ending. So we would send out the script that was only about, up until the third act break, which we very literally call out in our movie. And that was kind of, we sent up right before that. So people didn't know when we were initially doing our chemistry reads and stuff like that, who the actual killer was. And honestly, the entire cast just had a blast with the game a little bit too. While we were in like early prep, at a certain point, you got to let them see the rest of the pages as we prep for these scenes and everything else too. But they were all along for the ride, and they all understood the importance of keeping it a secret from even their friends. They would tell them they were in a Scream movie, but they wouldn't tell them what their character was or what their role was in it. And they brought that reverence to it, and that made the entire experience that much more fun. And the big revelations and the performances that we did get on screen a lot more exciting to watch.
One of my most memorable moments in the whole process was when we were reading people. We knew we were going to cast Jack, and we got on a Zoom. He had read a script where he didn't know who the killer was, and then we got on a Zoom with him and told him that he was the killer. And Matt has the best screen grab of the moment that information is hitting Jack Quaid's brain, and he's just like,
Yeah,
are you
mind blown.
I know you guys, or I think you guys had alt scripts circulating with different endings. Can you share any of those unused endings?
They weren't really, they were just different killers, and there were changes, but they were the same basic idea, but you wouldn't be able to figure out what everything was. I think they changed some of the motivation a little bit too, but Guy and Jamie would just kind of bust them out for us as we needed them. It was pretty fun. I think they had fun with it.
They had fun. They had a blast. Yeah.
Did you ever, just for fun, toy around with making one of the original three a killer?
I don't think
so. Right? I mean, I've never heard Guy or Jamie talk about it. It never came up with us.
Fair enough.
I mean, they wouldn't. Come on. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
I can't. I mean,
I don't think anyone would have believed you if you were trying to have that, figure it out on set game, and then one of them was in the mix.
Yeah.
There needs to be an out of context
like meme out there with like Sid killing everybody, because I think that would be a pretty good horror movie in and of itself, the way she fires the guns and her one-liners and everything like that too. That would be actually pretty interesting to see that
You should
supercut.
make that meme, Chad.
I
Make
know,
that
yeah.
meme, bro. Let's get it trending.
Sidney as a psycho. That would be great. Yeah.
You could probably make an alt cut with the right assortment of clips and the right music. I'd probably watch that. This is something that I love playing with every single Scream film, so I need to know if you guys know the definitive answers here. Who committed what kill in the movie?
We have a bit of a roadmap that, I think with the exception of the opening, which we think you could say was both of them, it's mostly Amber. She's fucking crazy.
She's crazy.
She's fucking crazy. But we had separate conversations with Jack and Mikey, and then we had a conversation with them together, and we kind of built out the off-screen relationship that was working and motivating them and their plan. And one of the things that we like to talk about is that Jack, that the Richie character thinks that it was all his idea. It's actually probably Amber's idea, and that she's kind of been leading from behind, and that we just love that makes Richie like just one of the most pathetic characters at the end of the day, that he like doesn't really want to get his hands dirty and do the gross stuff. He like wants to intellectualize it all, and Amber's like, fuck it, I'll break eggs.
Intellectualize things that aren't his idea to begin with.
Yes.
This might be me reading into it too much, but is there any specifics to Richie and to Amber in terms of the killing style? It's like Amber read to me as like the stab happy one of the two. Whenever it was like unnecessarily violent and too much stabbing, it was her, but maybe something like Vince could have been Richie.
Yeah, the Amber being like the frenzied. I mean, she even does it in the kitchen. The ree.
Yeah.
It's we agree with you. There's a little bit of a different style there.
Here's an Amber question for you. Is her demise a deliberate reference to Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
We wish it was. I mean, because we love that movie and we've watched it collectively probably 100 times. But honestly, it was just we loved Mikey so much and we wanted her so badly to be in the movie. And it was just sort of either lame or super serendipitous that she was going to get torched in this one. And, I mean, I think we now, it was the character Amber was going to get burned alive, and we really wanted Mikey Madison to be in the movie, and then that happened. It is what it is, but I think now we've really come to embrace it as a fun sort of like accidental nod.
It's like one of the most disturbing ways imaginable for the stars to align, but I absolutely love it.
I hope that Mikey is getting asked that question, because what a ridiculous thing to have two big
so
movies
silly.
where you get burned
I hear
alive.
she's playing Joan of Arc next, so she's going to go for the trifecta. Yeah.
Bursting at the seams during the non-spoiler junket to bring that up, and it was killing me not to. All right, speaking of deaths, man, I've got to ask this. It still makes me sad to think about it, but Dewey dying,
Yeah.
I don't know. I've got my own ideas for this, but in your own words, why did Dewey have to die?
Who's up on our...
I'll just get my 2 cents in real quick. It honestly is like something that we had an emotional reaction to when we read it, and it was so emotional, and it was like it was so gut wrenching when we read it. We're like, oh yes, this is the right choice. This is exactly what you need to feel right now at this point in the movie. And also it would be the only thing that would bring Sidney back to Woodsboro, I think. And when you approach it from that one too, and everything else that Dewey does in the movie, he's always the Sidney Carton, for lack of a better, I don't know, prototype of what he is. He's this hero that is always just willing to sacrifice himself for literally everyone else in the movie to live on. And this being 11 years after the fourth one and like trying to get the franchise to move forward, it's like, this is another sacrifice to the horror gods of a good man that now, the franchise can live on a little bit and the movie can be what it is. And we talk about like the emotionality of what Scream is and what it can be. We go from one of the, more brutal deaths of our movie, and what leads right up into it is all the meta awareness, the scene with the YouTube page and with Richie on the bed and talking about Stab 8 and all that stuff. So one of the funnier scenes of the entire movie. And to have that go from 1 to 2 is just, it's one of those moments where like, oh wow, we get to do a lot of things in this movie and really experience a lot of emotions. And hopefully people are supposed to be sad about this. People are supposed to have a new reverence for this. And in the days after the movie came out, I think one of the biggest things and nicest things that people said, it was just like, they immediately went back and watched the original. Just you could see Dewey and the way he started and kicked off everything, and that just means a lot. He's a beloved character in movie history, one of the most beloved, and I think that's for that exact reason is why it had to be Dewey in this one.
He's also unkillable, right? Like, I think that's, it's not lost on us that him being a survivor of so much brutality, that for the movie to show the audience that it was playing for keeps, and that there's no safety net under what you think the movie is going to be, which to us is honestly like one of the most important things to achieve with a Scream movie, is that it is going to make you experience some really difficult things. And I think that we all forget that, like, that is what was so compelling about the opening of the first movie, that it hurts and you don't like that feeling, and that it at the same time completely has you hooked in. And for us, we had a similar feeling reading that scene, and then certainly shooting it. It was like, oh, this is a big deal, and it's going to change the emotionality of the movie in a way that hopefully, while yeah, it's super difficult, it's also going to make everyone invest, because they want the fucking killers to get their comeuppance, and they cannot wait for that to happen. And that for us, and we heard this during previews and all of that, it's like, ooh, that's when like the engine of the movie kind of kicks into a new gear, where it's like, all right, justice for Dewey. Like, now it's about something else. It's about, obviously finding out who the murderers are and all of the fun whodunit stuff, but it's also about like a real justice in that moment. And that for us is like a super important part of how the movie feels and the shape of it post that difficult sequence.
I'd also just say that, David had talked about Dewey thinking of himself as Clint Eastwood, and obviously we know Dewey is not Clint Eastwood, but he liked he that's what he brought to the characters, that he wanted to be that guy, and so there was something special about, I think, or not special, but that we really tried to put into his death scene, where you kind of finally give him that moment of like, here he is, he's doing the, high noon hero's walk. He's going to do the thing. He's going to achieve it, and kind of let him go out like a hero in a way that, is deserved isn't the right word, but you know what I mean? Like send him out, in a funeral pyre kind of thing, like really go for it. And I think we wanted to make sure that it didn't like, it wasn't like throwaway. It wasn't just like, and then he's.
Justifying that was probably one of the most difficult things for you to do with just me as a viewer, and the fact that you did it is still kind of blowing my mind. It's very difficult to let go of a character like that.
Yeah.
But I feel like sad but an appropriate send off.
That's that.
Well, thank you for saying that.
Thank you. Yeah.
I mean it. Mark is Mark Kincaid, right?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
Just for fun, how do you imagine Sidney and Mark reunited? Because there is no hint of a reconnection in Scream 4.
At some point after Scream 4, he probably called her and was like, hey, I heard you went through it again.
Remember all that terrible shit we experienced?
Yeah. Your
talk about it.
Niece, what is she?
Yeah.
Fair enough. I'll buy that. How did you wind up coming to include the nod to Kirby? And does that mean she could come back in the flesh in the future?
We reached out to Hayden and I. We always knew like it'd be such a fun question to answer. We certainly know that there is like a real kind of critical mass around the Kirby thing online, and for our money, she's one of our favorite characters in the franchise. Like we love Hayden's work in that fourth movie, and thought it would be really fun to like provide some conclusive evidence of her survival. And we reached out to her, and at some point we wanted to have her more involved. At the end of the day, though, for a character that for us is as interesting and as fun to watch as she is, it didn't make sense to like do something small, and it felt like a better way to service it for this movie was to just have a light nod. And we know the fans that care so dearly about that character would pick up on it. The second you see her face in that thumbnail, I think everyone's like, well, shit, that there she is. And we love, again, I think one of the fun things about the universe of these movies is the off-screen story. Mark and Sidney, what's happened to Kirby, like all of that stuff for us, like that's the fuel that kind of exists in the tank once you leave the theater. And we love thinking about, who these characters are outside of the stories that we see on screen.
I'll do it nonstop. Bigger, broader question here. Can you share anything about deleted scenes we have to look forward to? Is there anything in particular you had a really tough time cutting that you're glad we'll be able to see down the line?
I think everything we did cut for the right reasons, and we kept the pacing of the movie going, and we kept the mystery going on. I think there were a lot of great outtakes in terms of ad libs that we would love to include, because honestly, every actor involved they brought such incredible charisma to every single line delivery that we kind of wanted to use them all. I mean, just thinking of a couple of like Jack Quaid's at the beginning and stuff like that. And everybody was just so into character that there were a lot of things that ended up on the cutting room floor that is just part of the process, I guess.
Can I ask you for one specific deleted scene? And if it is a deleted scene, then can you tell me about it?
Yeah. And by the way, there are some scenes that will appear, when the movie is released digitally, that, again, as Chad said, like, I think it's always hard to lose footage that you love. But at the end of the day, I think you always have to like think about what's best for the project as a whole. And, there was a great scene with Dewey at the bar that was really fun. And there was a great Judy Dewey scene that we also really loved. But at the end of the day, it was the thing that sort of happened as we were digging into the edit was really wanting to make sure that it for as much as it felt like the legacy cast had a real pivotal role to play in this movie, that it also felt like the new cast wasn't just disposable. And for us to do that, you have to get the audience to invest in them in a really specific way, and you have to spend time with those characters, and you have to know and calibrate really specifically when you want to bring the legacy cast in, because they do have so much gravitas, right? The second that like Dewey, Sid, and Gale are in the movie, you're just like, fuck yeah, love those characters. I want it all. I want all of that. And so that balancing act for us was an interesting challenge and a really fun part of crafting what is ultimately the movie.
Great success in that respect, because when the movie ends, obviously I consider the idea of Gale and Sidney not coming back. And for the first time ever, I felt okay with that. And I feel like that just speaks to how powerful the new ensemble you guys introduce is. So job well done. The one scene I wanted to ask you about, is there another scene between Liv and Vince?
There is not another scene between Liv and Vince.
He's wrong. I'm theorizing like crazy.
We can lie. You want to cut that out and we'll just say yes and you can win the bet?
No, it's all right. I'm a bad liar.
There is somewhere in there a whole other movie with Vince.
Kyle so early though.
Yeah.
I mean, us too. Kyle was a trooper. Kyle had auditioned for some other parts that just for, a myriad of reasons didn't work out. But Kyle is so fucking great and classy and awesome. And he was like, I'll be anything you guys want me to do, I'm in. And we were like, seriously? Like, we have this role, but it's very small, but we want it to feel big. And he's like, fuck yeah, guys, I'm on my way. It was like, hats off to Kyle for coming and embracing that. And I will say, like, he really, I think he took that character to the next level, because that character was he was a lot like, on the page, he was what Kyle did, but I think Kyle brought this, like, I'm trying to figure out how to say this without,
it's like a bravado, like
gossipy,
a machismo. It's like,
yeah, he had somebody in mind. Let's just say he had somebody in mind that he was basing it off of.
Yes. And I remember talking to him, and he's like, "You guys, is it okay if I like really swing with this?" And we were like, "Fuck yeah."
And he had a very specific
archetype
person he was basing it on, and we were like, "Do it."
Fair enough. And he gets red right hand, so he is a big winner in this whole scenario.
Red right hand. That's right.
All right, I have to let you go, but I'm going to end with one big, enormous, selfish question, and it's going to put you guys on the spot creatively. If I were in the market for a Scream tattoo, do you have any recommendations? because I can't think of anything that is creative enough and uniquely my own.
The
Scream
Mocker
tattoo.
House. The Mocker House on your back, a whole back piece.
I think my mom would approve of that. She's really glad you're suggesting that right now.
Yeah,
Oh man, I don't know. That's a good one.
that's a
That's a
tough
good
one.
question.
We've seen some awesome ones, by the way. The messages, the incoming messages of Scream tattoos are really something else.
I got one that
problem.
would be a real swing. But if you pay attention in the first, this is the first Scream. There is a piece of blood. Do you guys remember this when I like brought this up? This is so dumb. There is the blood splatter on Sidney in the finale of the original. There is a little thing on her face that looks just like a heart. It is like a perfect heart. And I swear, once you see it, you can't unsee it. And I love it so much. That's my suggestion. Get a heart blood
That's a
tattoo on
good
your
one,
face.
yeah.
I won't put it on my face, but that is like the type of little Easter egg
Right.
thing that at least I could hide.
Do
Yes,
you
can
have
put it
any?
anywhere.
Do you have ideas? Do you have like a list of things of options, or are you just like you want one? You just don't know what it should be.
I want something that no one else has. My Jurassic Park one was handwritten by Samuel L. Jackson, so it's hard to top that, and I don't want to be the person with like a handwritten quote from like all of her favorite movies on her.
Mhm.
But I feel like the only idea I've come up with is some sort of creative spin on a Ghostface mask. And I have one artist who will not get back to me. But it's like if I could find something like that, then I'm good.
We could probably like reach out to Lillard or to get to do the tattoo for you. Maybe it's who does the tattooing. That could be interesting.
I'll warn you in advance. When I asked Sam Jackson, I said to myself, if it does not look neat, like I will not do it. So if you did that, I would put this person to the test. If it does not look neat and legit, I will not tattoo it onto myself.
Well, let us know if you come up with anything. I feel invested.
Okay. I'll see this through with you. All right. To be determined. Follow-up video at some point in the future. I have to let you go. I have like another like 2 pages of questions here, and I won't dare do that to you right now. But
Well, we
thank
would
you
love
so
to
much.
at some point. So
Yeah, anytime.
tell us
Oh my God.
when.
Anytime.
Let's.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
Anytime you want. I'm gonna be sitting here revisiting your movie probably over and over until Jurassic World Dominion comes out. So you guys got a lot of time.
All right.
Perry, it's been so fun.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Thank you
Perry.
so much.
Thank you so much.
It's good to talk.